and they're gone. The MAGA Republicans are shutting down Congress yet again. They're leaving Washington, D.C. by and large, and they are partially shutting down the government. And if this seems like deja vu, it's because this is what the MAGA Republicans do, and they especially do this when there is greater attention on the Trump regime covering up child sex trafficking within the Epstein files. And boy, oh boy, are Donald Trump and the MAGA Republicans running scared. So look, the Democrats, I think, made some pretty basic demands regarding ICE and Border Patrol funding. Democrats said, look, take the masks off your ICE and Border Patrol, Gestapo, put some body cameras on them. And here's a wild concept. Let's use judicial warrants pursuant to the Fourth Amendment of the Constitution instead of these bogus administrative warrants that ICE and Border Patrol are using to break into people's homes. Could we do that? If we can do that, MAGA Republicans, then we can continue to fund the Department of Homeland Security. By the way, I would be still pretty pissed off about that. I want ICE and Border Patrol entirely abolished, but okay, that's what the Democrats said. And the MAGA Republicans were like, no, they got to wear their masks and no body cams and no judicial warrants, because if all of that happened, you're going to dox them and you're going to dox. We need to keep them masked. And so the MAGA Republicans were like, you know what? This is awfully convenient as well for us to shut down or partially shut down the government and then shut down Congress because, you know, the walls are closing in on the Trump regime regarding the Epstein files. And whether it's Howard Lutnick, Pam Bondi, Donald Trump, all these MAGAs, they are running scared. So MAGA Mike Johnson, the MAGA Republican Speaker of the House, Senator Thune, the majority leader in the Senate, they're like, bye-bye, we are leaving. Here is how it's being reported by Sarah Ferris. House is going to leave today. Maybe they'll be on 48 hours notice to come back. Maybe, per GOP sources. Shutdown starts Friday night at midnight. Manu Raju explains. The DHS shut down, all but certain. What's likely going to happen? Senate Democrats expected to block the House bill to fund DHS through September. Then there'll be competing resolutions. Then the senators will leave town, and they're saying bye-bye. Some senators are going to the Munich conference. Some senators are going back to their home district, but they are out. And they're shocked, I tell you. They said, why won't they agree with Donald Trump and us? We want our ICE Gestapo to wear masks. Well, let me show you what went down as well before these MAGA Republicans decided they're going to shut down Congress again and partially shut down the government. It's only a partial shutdown because the shutdown would just relate to the Department of Homeland Security. But this is what went down before. You can see why the MAGA Republicans wanted to get the hell out of here. Every one of these hearings, they beclown themselves even more. So you have this guy, Jeremy Carl, who Donald Trump wants to appoint as the Assistant Secretary of State for international organizations. So this is Trump's appointee. This is who Trump picked. He wants the Senate to confirm this guy. I'm just showing you the data points of what went down before the Senate and the House were like, all right, enough. We're out of here. So this is the guy Trump wants to be the Assistant Secretary of State. Sounds like a big position, right? Because it is. And his name is Jeremy Carl, and he's a white nationalist. Like, that's his thing. Like, I'm not being hyperbolic. He goes around and he basically says, like, this is what I do. I'm like, he's a white nationalist. That's his thing. So Senator Murphy, Democratic senator, cross-examines this guy, Carl. And he's like, so your belief is that white Americans face more discrimination than anybody else? That's how you feel? Here, play this clip right here.
A year ago, were white Americans the most discriminated against group in the United States? You said it. So
yeah. Senator, no, certainly this is my belief. I'm not running away from that. I think that while, of course, all races in different contexts can be subject to really severe discrimination, that when we look at our legal structures, white Americans are often very disfavored in overt ways. We're seeing this in the Small Business Administration, many other places.
So your belief is that white Americans face more discrimination, at least prior to the Trump administration fixing this, than black Americans?
On average, Senator, yes, that's correct. And I'm not running away from that statement at all.
Okay. And here's some more questioning of this guy. Let's play it.
Mr. Carl, I think it's just heartbreaking that you have been nominated for this position and that you've reached a panel before the United States Senate. But I do want to give you a chance to go a little bit deeper in your explanations of your personal beliefs. They are directly relevant to your fitness to serve. You already have had some of your statements read to you, but I'd like you to respond to at least a few of them. One of the things you have said is that anti-white discrimination is the most pervasive and politically salient form of racism today. So do you continue to believe that anti-white discrimination is more salient than the discrimination faced today by Blacks, Latinos, Muslims, or other American groups?
Thank you for that question. And thank you also for giving me an opportunity to speak at a little bit of length. I haven't necessarily had much opportunity to respond.
I'm going to have at least one more question for you, so I'll give you a minute or two to respond.
Yes. So thanks to the great work of my friend Harmeet Dhillon as the Assistant Attorney General of Civil Rights, I actually think that we've done an incredible job in this administration of getting rid of certain policies that discriminate particularly against white Americans.
I got. This is real. This is Trump's pick to be the Assistant Secretary of State for international organizations. It's a big position. Senate confirmed. And here's Chris Murphy. He writes, Senator Murphy goes, Trump nominated a legit white nationalist to a top post at the State Department. I asked him some basic questions about his belief in the erasure of white culture, watched his embarrassing fumbling answer like he was never before asked to explain his views. Here, play this clip.
Tell me how you define white identity and what you think is being erased about white identity.
Certain types of Anglo-derived culture that comes from our history.
Like what?
Let me think about this. Senator, I would say if you were to look at the book by one of your former Senate colleagues, Born Fighting, about the sort of Scotch-Irish military culture and certain, pride that went with that, that would be one example. Obviously, you could have sub-elements of that culture. You could have Italians, you could have Irish, and those are in many ways more.
Yeah, but you're worried about white culture. You're not worried about, you're now retreating to ethnic identity. You don't speak about ethnic identity. You speak about white identity. So tell me the values that stitch together white identity and that make it different than Black identity.
I would say that the white church is very different than the Black church in terms of its tone and style on average. Foodways could often be different.
And those are being erased.
Music could be different.
And those are being erased.
Music could be different. Well, if you look at the Super Bowl halftime show, which was not in English this year.
So our ability to access white churches or white food or white music is being erased?
I am concerned with the majority common American culture that we had for some time that through particularly mass immigration, I think has become much more balkanized. And I think that weakens us. And again, I'm not running away from that comment. I'm not apologizing for it.
Well, I'm way over my time. I think you're struggling to answer this question, right? Because underlying your beliefs is a sentiment that white culture is just simply better.
Right. So while that was going on in that committee, in another committee, the Senate invited some. They invited the Attorney General Ellison from Minnesota. They invited some ICE agents and some Border Patrol people. And you would think, okay, in terms of Minnesota, this is a very tragic, difficult time. People have gotten killed, very traumatic. But you have Ron Johnson, MAGA Republican senator from Wisconsin. He's cross-examining Keith Ellison, the Attorney General of Minnesota, and he attacks Ellison and blames Ellison for the murder of Alex Pretty and Renee Nicole Good. He blames the Democratic Attorney General because the Democratic Attorney General says that people have the right to use their First Amendment right to peacefully protest. And I want you to watch as Ron Johnson from Wisconsin loses his mind. Like he's yelling at Keith. You should be yelling at the white nationalist dude like this, but you're yelling at the AG for defending people's constitutional rights. This is why these MAGAs are sick. They're sick people. Look at what Ron Johnson does here. Play this clip.
I, as a government official, would have said, back off. Let us work with ICE. Let's cooperate with them. Let's see if we can't de-escalate this. But Attorney General, you did the exact opposite. And 2 people are dead because you encouraged them to put themselves into harm's way. And now you're exploiting those 2 martyrs. That was a tragedy. It never should have happened. Now, we can investigate, but I can't imagine being a law enforcement official where I know my colleagues have been shot at, their vehicles rammed, that there are trained activists deployed. And by the way, we know at least one of those activists had a semi-automatic pistol with extra clips. So now you're an ICE officer. You're doing enforcement action. You've got a team behind you trying to protect you. You've got all these trained activists behind you. Is it any wonder they're at hair trigger alert? A tragedy was going to happen, and you encouraged it. And you ought to feel damn guilty about it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, sit there and smirk. Smirk. It's sick. It is despicable.
Are you asking me for comment, Senator? Because everything you said was untrue. It was a nice theatrical performance, but it was all lies.
Senator Hassan.
And as Aaron Rupar says, here's the video of Keith Ellison that really triggered, apparently, MAGA Ron Johnson from Wisconsin. Play this clip.
A tragedy was going to happen, and you encouraged it. And you ought to feel damn guilty about it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, sit there and smirk. Smirk. It's sick. It is despicable.
Are you asking me for comment, Senator? Because everything you said was untrue. It was a nice theatrical performance, but it was all lies.
Senator Hassan.
And then the cross-examine of Attorney General Ellison of Minnesota from Ron Johnson is, did you ever encourage people to go out and exercise their First Amendment rights? Did you do that in Keith Ellison? It's like, did I tell people that they have a First Amendment right to peacefully protest? I did.
Did you ever encourage people to go out there and exercise the First
Yeah, I do.
Right?
I freely admit being in favor of the First Amendment.
You encouraged trained activists to put themselves into harm's way because you had to know, because you were watching this, that there were scuffles at least, that these people were obstructing justice. I would think you'd actually, as the chief law enforcement officer of Minnesota, be concerned about people obstructing justice. So, putting their cars in streets, blocking roads. I would think as chief law enforcement, you would be concerned about that. But were you ever concerned about encouraging, I guess, people to support you to go out and put themselves into harm's way?
No, we never.
Impeding and obstructing illegal law enforcement action. Did that ever concern you?
Sir, that never happened. We all times said, if you want to protest peacefully, protest safely. But you'll never find me being against the First Amendment
right now. But
I'll always be for the First Amendment.
And then finally, you have Ellison talking about how the surge by the Trump regime, Operation Metro Surge, caused crime to be committed there.
ICE's own data shows that 77% of those it has detained in Minnesota have no criminal record at all. Notoriously, some of those detained have been children. Is 5-year-old Liam Conejo Ramos the worst of the worst, or 10-year-old Elizabeth Zunia Castaguano? The surge is contributing to violent crime, members. It's contributing to violent crime. 2 of the 3 homicides committed in Minneapolis in 2026 have come at the hands of federal immigration agents. Recently, The government has said the purpose of the surge is to gain cooperation from state and local officials and immigration enforcement. But the Minnesota Department of Corrections already follows state law that requires Minnesota to notify federal authorities when a non-citizen incarcerated for a felony. Second, under Minnesota law, no jail can keep someone incarcerated on an ICE detainer longer than they're otherwise legally allowed to incarcerate them. This is not unique to Minnesota. Several of our federal and state courts have reached a broad consensus that aligns with our law. So after dismissing all of the pretexts, what's clear, this surge is all about what Donald Trump said it was all about. In a true social post on January 13th, he wrote, "Retribution and reckoning was coming to Minnesota." This war on Minnesota is retribution, to be sure. Our policies, our values, and how we vote, and it comes at a great cost. Senators, it comes at a cost of the lives of 2 U.S. citizens, Renee Good and Alex Preddy. It comes at the cost of shuttered businesses, Mr. Chairman, disruptions in education for tens of thousands of children, lasting harm to Minnesota's economic prosperity and social cohesion. And it comes at a cost, Mr. Chairman, to our Constitution.
And then finally, Ellison talks about feeling like they were occupied in Minnesota. Let's play this clip.
So, Attorney General, I just kind of wanted to ask you, how did it feel on the ground when you have that much of presence at the federal level of these officers beyond what you were saying, 2 to 3 times the total number of state and local officers?
It felt like our state was targeted, blanketed with paramilitaries everywhere who were approaching citizens, non-citizens, whoever. It felt like we were being occupied by the federal government. And I started returning, Senator, to reading about how the Boston Massacre, how did those Bostonians feel when a faraway government in England had imperial troops marching all over their city, harassing and abusing the citizenry? That's kind of how I felt.
I heard that word a lot, used by others in Minnesota in the press, of just feeling occupied, just feeling like you don't have the ability to be able to control your own state and have this imposed upon you. So I just really wanted to hit that home because, again, we're having a lot of talks about what level of cooperation and whatnot, but I think this committee needs to look at just the sheer volume, the sheer number of federal agents and what kind of signal that sends to Minnesota and to those on the ground. And look,
Senator Kim, can I make one quick point?
Yes, of course.
Forgive me, my apologies. So the thing is, it has been said there have been surges in other states and we haven't had these kind of problems. The reason why is it's never been on this scale. We just simply haven't seen this level of scale in other cities. This is the single largest deployment of ICE, of immigration agents in the history of our country. So I'm sorry for interrupting.
And look, I want to hand it to Rand Paul because he was cross-examining the ICE agent. And here's what he had to say.
We've got more than one problem here. I think that, I understand you not wanting to make conclusions yet, but nobody believes you're going to, because you made conclusions immediately, not you, but people within the government made conclusions immediately that he was a terrorist and an assassin, that people aren't believing that it's going to be an honest investigation. It's also been quite a while. And I'm one who I am very pro-law enforcement. I don't think, as terrible as this is, it's something that's a crime. I think it's terrible police work. But there has to ultimately be repercussions. I think he is retreating at every moment. He's trying to get away, and he's being sprayed in the face. I don't think that's de-escalatory. That's an escalatory thing. So while pepper gas, you might have a theory of how it might be a de-escalation. In this case, without a question, it is. But I can tell you, if we come back with a result and people say we looked at it, nobody's to blame for anything, and there are no changes, I think it destroys the trust in ICE. You want trust in ICE and Border Patrol agents. We've got to restore that. And it doesn't mean that we have to do something inappropriate to these agents, but some of the stuff's inexcusable. I mean, and it's going to take take conclusions. It's going to come forward. But right now, I don't know that the American public, believes that there can be an honest assessment. Who is doing the investigation?
So multiple agencies are doing an investigation. The FBI is involved, FBI Civil Rights are involved, ICE is involved, and CBP's Office of Professional Responsibility is involved. CBP's specific role is to preserve the evidence and really focus on what you're talking about, the administrative aspects of it and the training aspects to make sure that we are constantly getting better and better. The criminal aspects are FBI. But there's a lot of other video, there's body cam video that's all being looked at. And until all that evidence is evaluated, I can't jump to a conclusion on either direction. I would ask America to do the same thing. But I am committed to transparency, to making sure all the information we have is made public when it's appropriate.
So you will release the officers' cameras?
Yes.
More from Rand Paul. Let's play it.
So there were people who said, and they were part of the government, I don't think they were interviewed, but part of DHS and part of the administration said that, yes, the officers were using de-escalation tactics. Nobody believes that. All right.
No.
I'm just going to stipulate that. I don't even need your opinion on that. No one in America believes shoving that woman's head in the face in the snow was de-escalation. But your officers need to know they had a verbal encounter with them. She did not place her hands on the officers. She wasn't trying to get their weapon. It's not great. I mean, I don't like to see these encounters either. But is it appropriate for the officers to respond to a verbal barrage of words or whatever? Is it proper to physically throw a woman down or to throw anyone down?
If the only action is verbal, no.
Okay, that's what I want to hear.
Yes.
Correct, sir. Same answer.
All right.
And finally, more from Republican Rand Paul. Let's play it.
With Alexander Preddy, he's filming in the middle of the street. We see two women that are, as you watch the video, jawboning, complaining, protesting, yelling, maybe not being nice, but they're protesting away. Let's keep the videos stopped. And so my question to Mr. Scott first is yelling at ICE officers or Border Patrol, is that a form of domestic assault on the officers?
No, sir.
Mr. Lyons?
No, sir, it's not.
Is filming of ICE or Border Patrol either an assault or a crime in any way, Mr. Scott?
No, sir.
Mr. Lyons?
No, sir.
Let's roll. Go ahead.
So after that, everyone was like, see you later, alligator. We're headed home. We're done. Shutting it all down. We're shutting it down. Okay. I mean, aren't these the worst? I mean, isn't this, what are you doing, MAGAs? At least keep the government. You can't govern. You don't do anything. You wonder why Donald Trump bankrupted like every business he touched. Every casino, bankrupt. Trump steaks, Trump this, Trump that, bankrupt. If there was a Guinness Book of World Records for the most bankruptcies, in my opinion, Trump would be at the top. I just can't believe it. But you know what? Are they gonna not come back? They're gonna do another 2-month thing again and disappear for 2 months? So utterly ridiculous. Let me know what you think. Hit subscribe. Let's get to 6 million subscribers. So utterly ridiculous.
Want to stay plugged in? Become a subscriber to our Substack at MeidasPlus.com. You'll get daily recaps from Ron Filipkowski, ad-free episodes of our podcast, and more exclusive content only available at MeidasPlus.com.